Hello, I'm Greg Redk Mods, and welcome to episode 11 of season 3 of my PowerPC series. In today's episode, we'll be talking about aftermarket upgrade cards, aka aftermarket CPU upgrade cards for your Mac, if it was PowerPC, of course. Now, these cards, for instance, this Sonnet right here, allowed your older Mac to run faster with aftermarket, more modern CPUs of the time. And I've got a lot of examples. This video is actually about 4 months in the making. I started filming it right before I sent off a number of mine to Colin as a form of payment for our future upgrades and mods. So he's got the cards that I started filming now in his possession, and I never got around to actually finishing filming, and since then I've actually gotten more of these things. In fact, here are two just right here. Okay, these are both Sonnet single core G4s, and look, another Sonnet G4. This is a ZIF upgrade for like a blue and white or a Yikes system, or even a G3 beige and whatnot. Now, these cards came in from different companies and in different flavors, and there had been a aftermarket market for this for years. First ones came out probably in the mid-90s for 604 systems or earlier, to upgrade to the next one, and then continued going. There were G3 upgrades for those systems, and then the G3 systems got G3 upgrades and G4 upgrades, and it all lopped off towards the end of life for the MDD. And they did continue producing these until probably the late 2000s. Maybe into early 2010s, but by then the market was basically dried up. No one really wanted these things anymore. But they came with a lot of neat things, boxes and documentation and features and all this warranty and all this really neat stuff. And these things were really powerful. So I'm looking forward to showing you guys these. In today's video, we'll be going back in time 4 months and showing you a Giga Designs that I sent to Colin, another one of those Sonnet singles that I also sent to Colin, and comparing the CPUs next to each other. Then we'll go forward in time to today and show you the current ones that I have, and we'll show you the benchmarks going back and forth in time and stuff, and showing you how they run. I was originally going to show you how these compare to the cards of the time, like for the particular models. Like for instance, if you're going from a sawtooth single 400 or 450 or 500 to like a single 1.4, what kind of speed difference and improvement that would be. I was originally going to do that, but decided it's going to take a long time, and I want to keep this video a little more brief, so we're just going to show you the performance of these. So just ignore what I said 4 months ago if I decide to leave that in the video, but rest assured it's going to be a very interesting video, and we're going to be doing more things with these cards in the future. And many companies, I don't remember if I quite covered this, but many companies made these, not just Sonnet. Sonnet was just the most popular and made basically the best CPUs. And there was many different companies, Giga Designs, OWC had their Mercury line, and just a lot of other companies. And it was a very interesting time. And just think if today you had upgrade cards and stuff to upgrade your Core 2 iMac to, for instance, an i-series CPU. That would be cool. That would never happen, but that would be cool. And that's basically what this did. You know, it'd be like hopping from a Pentium 4 to like an i9. You know, big difference in performance, and sometimes upgrade cards were 4 times or even more powerful, and very amazing things to behold. And the only card that I'm not showing you in this intro that I own is the one in my Quicksilver. The one that I showed you in the, I introduced you guys to my dual 1.8 card system a few episodes ago. I'll link it right up here. Colin's Giga Designs almost destroyed the logic board, so I was originally going to be testing all these CPUs except for the ZIP one in this system, but now we're just going to be testing the dual 1.8 in this system, and then going over to my brand new digital audio that I just finished building, and it should still perform the same, still give about the same results, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. And anyway, let's get on with the video. Okay, and here are the 4 cards. We've got the Sonnet Encore ST 1 GHz single, the Sonnet Encore ST 1.4 GHz single, the Giga Designs G-Accelerator dual 1.4 GHz, and the Sonnet Encore ST G4 Duet 1.8 GHz right here. And this is what the cards look like. Now, if we flip them around here, we have them in the direction that they'd plug in at. Okay. Alright, that's the bottoms of the cards. These two are literally the identical same card. This one just has a slightly faster chip on it, and they're really hard to tell the difference of. It's just, I don't know what's different other than chip. We're not, Colin nor I are sure yet. He says he's going to try to reverse engineer this 1 gigahertz here, but I think there's a controller chip that regulates the speed and detects the speed of the bus, because Sonnet chips will automatically set themselves to their speed. Okay, so for instance, these right here, that would be a 1 gigahertz in a 100 bus or a 133, and so would that be a 1.4, and that would be a 1.8. Where the Giga Designs, and this is apparently a similar design, OWC did a similar design to it with their Mercury accelerator cards, but Giga Designs did theirs a little different. This card right here is very unique. We'll show you more about this card, these 2 cards. I'll just show you this one up close, and I'll show you this one up close after I send these 2 off, because this is literally identical. There's no difference. They both look the same. So I can show you this one up close and that one up close and not worry. But right now, this is a very interesting card. Now, before I show you that, come to think of it, I want to show you one more thing. Now, Sonnet, there's a reason why Sonnet always made the best cards. Look how small that is, the board. And I'll show you pictures of what these look like with the heat sinks off. I'm not doing it because it's a pain. Yeah, if you look at the Sonnet cards, all the cards are the same. All the sizes. And this one's got 2 in it. You can even see the bottom of the chips here. Okay, where the pinouts would be. Okay, dual, and then singles. Okay, but they're all square, all take up the same as a factory 100 megahertz CPU would from like a sawtooth or a gigabit Ethernet, or even the G4 Cube. They all take up the same size. Where factory cards, like this was the most powerful 133. This is the 1 gigahertz dual, which comes from a Quicksilver. If you look, it is vastly bigger. And the gigabit, the Giga designs here isn't just the size of a single. As you can see here, it's got more power management here off the edge of the board and stuff. But that shows you that Sonnet had their stuff together. Other companies just they still made good stuff, but they kind of slapped them together quickly and didn't do it compact and stuff. But anyway, the Giga Designs card, this thing's been a pain. It came to me, I got it from Griffin Wright from Facebook, and Griffin told me that he thought it was a dual 1.6, and he just had a picture at the top of it, and they do look similar from what I've looked in pictures and stuff. He thought it was a dual 1.6, and then after he sent it to me, he said he wasn't sure. It might be a dual 1.8, which even made me more excited because I thought this might be another 7447 card like this Sonnet here. And another thing, if you look at this Sonnet, it's got this really nice copper heatsink. Spreads the whole card where that doesn't. Okay, but anyway, getting back to the point here. The Giga Designs card, when I got it, I didn't know it was in as bad shape as it was. The picture wasn't really descriptive, but he thought it worked, and it did work, but the jumper settings were all messed up. And how I said that this was just like the OWC Mercury cards, they use the same jumper settings. The jumpers on Giga Design and OWC cards were on dip switches. Some Giga Designs I think used real jumpers like these down here. I think this is for power, I'm not really sure. But anyway, so these use these jumper banks here, and I couldn't figure out how to clock this thing to make it work in the Quicksilver that I was testing it in, and it just would not run. I finally found a Giga Designs jumper setting that should have put this to 1.4, because after I got this card I found out it was a 1.4. It says 1400 on the bottom of it, and it's a dead giveaway. It's a 1.4. But it's okay. It's got dual 7455s in it. They're 1.25 gigahertz factory, and then Giga Designs actually made them, so you could overclock them to 1.4. This came from the factory as a 1.4. But anyway, this is a very unique card. It's got these interesting heat sinks like this right here on the power regulators. They dissipate a lot of heat, and they vibrate, which is very unique. As they get hot, they seem to vibrate. I guess that helps dissipate heat some. But as we can see, the card has a very interesting patina. This thing's been really worn out, but it still works great. There was one problem with it, which I've already filmed, where the fans, they did work. They don't now. I don't know why, but I think something's going on with the socket. It might be a little too wide. It was messing up the socket on my board, and I thought I had killed the Quicksilver. I didn't, which is a good thing, because that would have been very upsetting to kill another Quicksilver. But anyway, yeah, so originally I was setting this to 1.4 on the Giga Designs jumpers that I found online, and it actually set it to 933, and I had this running at a dual 933 for just to see if it powered on. And then I had a guy on Facebook, I can't quite remember his name right offhand, but I'll put a thank you right here for finding. He has a OWC Mercury card that uses the same jumpers, and he sent me the instructions. But anyway, so this is now overclocked to 1.46. It shows up on the Quicksilver as 1.47, and in System Profiler it says 1.5. The system really doesn't know what it is, but it's a 1.46. We'll go with that. It's overclocked to 1.46, and it runs great, other than not being able to get the fans to work now. I don't know why it did it, but it doesn't seem to work anymore. I'll show you pictures of it. This thing, you can tell it had a hard life. It was actually used a lot. But it works other than the fans currently. And if you see this burnout nasty connector right here, that goes to this. This is a extra power you plug in right here, and you get extra power from Molex, and it uses it's just two direct I think 12 volt, I think that's the 12 volt pin, line feed straight into the card, which I think is more meant for like the Sawtooth and Gigabit Ethernet, because they weren't designed for the 4775s or the 7445s and the 7455s. I'm getting really confused now, but these are bigger, more powerful, power-sucking chips. So I figured that was what that was for. But this wire is chewed up, it's dry rotted, and not very safe. It needs rewired. This thing really got used. But it works, and you'll see that in the video coming up. It's kind of a shame it's not quite as pretty as the Sonnet, and as you can tell, it's more archaic looking. But it's neat because you can set it to almost any clock you want, and it might run at it just by flipping some dip switches, which is cool. And that's the Sonnet. See, if you see how different the copper is right now. The Sonnet's copper still like brand new, and the Giga Designs looks like an old worn out penny. It's seen its share of stuff. But anyway, so yeah, that's it. So let's go on with the other cards. I'll be filming this later. I don't have a whole lot of time to film this stuff tonight. So we'll go on to the other cards later. It will be just right now for you guys, but I'll be filming them later. And we'll be covering the performance tests, which I already did on that, and the 1 gigahertz over there. And we'll compare it to some factory cards and stuff, and even to an MDD in performance tests. And I hope you guys can continue enjoying looking at all this stuff. Okay, so the Giga Designs is benchmarking right now. I need to film this part separately because I don't know what happened to the headers on the Giga Design board, but the fan headers just don't seem to be working. So I thought I'd show you guys how I have the fans running right now. And that involves a Molex adapter here, and the other fan being screwed, plugged into the motherboard right there, in the back case fan header there. And as we can see, I can lay my fingers on it. It's ice cold, but without these two fans on it, even though this fan has been custom modified to blow onto the heatsink, it just got too hot, and it was scalding hot. But right now it is still benchmarking, and I'll show you the results in a second. Okay, so I figured out that something is not quite right with the socket on the Giga Designs card here. No clue what's going on. It had some bent pins on it that I didn't notice, and it chewed up the socket on my Quicksilver. It worked, as you saw, but that's one of the reasons why the fan stopped working. I don't know what's going on with it, but oh well. I'm sure Colin can figure that out. But when I plug any of the CPUs into it, it still works, but the fans still weren't working. And this thing, the fans still don't work even after I fixed the board. And every time I plug it in, it seems to mess up again. I have no clue why. But yeah, the fans work now. There's a pin on the board that controls the power to the fans, and apparently that pin must have been bent a little bit more than it should have been. So when I power on this system, this is the single 1 gigahertz right here, and it should just power on, and you should see the fan spin using the socket power. So here we go. Okay, so we have the Sonnet single 1 gigahertz G4 in the Quicksilver right here. As we can see right here, it's all installed and running, and you know, it's what it looks like running. Looks pretty cool. And of course I am filming all of this before I send it off to Colin tomorrow, so I need to film it quickly. So we'll open up Geekbench here and run the benchmarks, and I'll show you the results. So let's let it go. Okay, so almost 4 months later, here are my CPUs. The Sonnet Dual 1.8, which is staying in this Quicksilver now since the socket's been damaged. And then we've got the Sonnet 1.4 single right here. Actually, this is the 1.2. I'll show you some quick pictures of that. It was really nasty when I got it in that one system. It took a lot of work and cleaning. Alright, let's see how badly this fan is seized up. See what's causing it. That would probably explain why the fan won't spin. Oh, it is totally gummed up. Yeah, I don't know if I can fix that. The motor might be burnt out and stuff to get it to work again. The fan's a little wonky, but it still works, so that's nice. And then the 1.4, hence why I got it confused. They look the same. Not going to go into detail about it, what it looks like and stuff, because it's the same card more or less, just a slightly slower G4 in it. And then my newest Sonnet G4, which is a ZIF card, which would go in a blue and white, or a Yikes G4, or even a beige G3. Or actually there were PCI, the pre-G3 Power Max, some of them there's adapters for ZIFs now, and that I never knew about until recently. So this could go in one of those too, probably. But this is a Sonnet, and I overlooked it on eBay multiple times before I realized it was a Sonnet. Usually there's a bunch of stickers right here, as you can tell. You can still see the glue from the stickers, but they're not on there anymore. And there used to be a gasket right here, which I think was like orange or something like that. That's been peeled off. But this is supposed to work. I haven't tried it yet, and we'll try it really quickly in this video. I won't be doing an overclock or anything on it. It will basically just run in the blue and white like a Yikes G4 would, only this is a 7410, which is the this is a 450 7410. This should overclock to 500 and maybe even 550. What I currently have in it's a 7400 from a Yikes. 7400s used more power, ran hotter, and weren't as efficient, plus they were older. This is the next revision of the G4s before they went to the 7450 builds. So this is the same chip that's in like my G4 Pismo and G4 clamshell. Very power efficient, very overclockable, and we'll just be running it in the blue and white to see if it works at first at the speed I currently have it set at, and in a later video we'll show you what it's like to overclock it and stuff, and that should be interesting. So anyway, this is my new Sonnet CPU, and these are my 4 Sonnet CPUs. I'm trying to think if I have any others. I'm pretty sure I don't. These are just the ones I have right now. So yeah, anyway, let's get into the benchmark tests and showing you what they look like running, and we'll wrap up the video, so I will see you then. Okay, so after Colin's Giga Designs CPU damaged the socket on this Quicksilver, I don't want to continue using it to show you the CPUs. So we're going to keep the Sonnet 1.8, dual 1.8 in it, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's running. But the system we're going to use for all these aftermarket cards now will be my new digital audio, which I got for altogether to build this system. It cost 20 bucks, I think, 25 bucks, 25 bucks maybe. This is actually built out of 2 digital audios. I got a great deal locally. One of them came with a Sonnet 1.2 single, and the other one was custom painted and really weird looking. This is the custom painted, really weird looking one. The one that came with the Sonnet was in bad shape and didn't run properly. So I moved the case parts over to make this digital audio, which we'll be covering one day. But this right now has the factory fan shroud on it, which would have came on I think the duals of the digital audio and stuff, and it's also got the Sonnet 1.2 in it, and we'll be taking the Sonnet 1.2 out of it as we benchmark and stuff, and I'll show you what these things look like when they're running. But I have this thing hooked up. The Sonnet 1.2 of course has its fan powered by itself from the socket, and the back fan, which on the Quicksilvers, the fan header's right here, I think. Yeah, the fan header's right there. On the digital audios, they're actually on the card, so there's no way to power it. So I have a Molex to fan adapter here, which I have taped together and stuff, and it powers the back fan. Now this Sonnet did have one little problem, which we'll talk a little more about it later, but this thing was nasty. I'll show you pictures of it. And the fan was completely seized up and not working. I got it to work, but it does have some bearing noise, and it does need some work. It probably needs a whole new fan, but we're not going to get into that right now. But I want to show you what it looks like when it's powered up. And sorry, this is a little crooked. My phone's almost dead here. There we go. Phone's almost dead, so it's plugged in right now. But we'll power it on. We'll hear the fan. This does eventually get quieter, but it's what it looks like. I figured this fan shroud would help it get better airflow, because the original system had the speaker missing and a fan mounted there in the speaker hole, and I don't think that helped at all. I think something melted on the board, because that sucker just didn't run. But this is what it looks like running in here, and a digital audio more or less will give the same performance as a Quicksilver. These both have 1.5 gigs of RAM in them. and they'll both run the same CPUs, aftermarket ones anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. And I'm looking forward to showing you all the performance tests on this system. So let's get into it. Okay, so I thought I'd start off by showing you the blue and white with the Yikes G4 400 in it. As we can see here are the specs on it. It's currently running, and it's a little warm, but it will actually run cooler with this Sonnet in it. And I want to actually do another update video on the blue and white very soon. I'll show you how to overclock this thing and make it run right. But I haven't even tested it yet. I don't know if it works yet. I need to leave feedback on it. This 7410 was made on the 51st week of 2002. And it looks like it's ready to go. So I've already cleaned it. We just need to take this CPU out. And of course we'll have to shut the system off first. So let's shut it off. We'll let it shut down. And once this shuts down, I'll grab my tripod real quick, and we'll undo this and see the comparison between the two. So let's get into it. Alright, so let's get the Yikes G4 out. It's that simple. Now I just need to wipe it off real quick, and we'll show you the big difference between these two. Alright, so this was made on the 33rd week of 1999, and this is a 7400 versus the 7410. Look at the die size difference. The die size alone is probably half of the 7400, and that will show it will run cooler, and it will probably overclock a lot higher, which is exciting. So let's install the Sonnet and power it back up. And of course this board's already been flashed for upgrade cards, so it should hopefully just boot right up. It's not going in. Huh. There it goes. I think the pins are a little bent, but it seems like it's going to work. So we've got the Sonnet installed. Let's just put a little dab of thermal paste on it. I'll have to wipe off the heatsink and do it properly later. But just a little bit. So a little more than I wanted, but hey, it works. Line the heatsink up. Set it down. It's not wanting to go in. Here. Ow! Okay, yeah, it's in. So, yeah, now let's see if it powers on. Let's move it up, hit the power button. See what happens. It's a good sign. So we'll let it boot up and see what it does. Now this card should still be running at the same speed. I haven't changed any of the jumper settings. and all the benchmarks would probably be the same. Hey, it already says it's 500 megahertz. So apparently this card has a different jumper set up on it. It's already overclocked to 500, and I didn't have to touch it. That's amazing. And now it can't identify what it is, which means it's a 7410 and it works. I'm a little shocked it's already overclocked. That means everything is skewed by 100 megahertz, which will make overclocking it a little more wild. I want to try 550, maybe 600. But right now, I guarantee it's running at 500 and it's probably totally stable. So that's cool. So anyway, we'll shut this system down and go on to the other systems. Okay, so it's now time to start up the Quicksilver, and Hiron wired this fan backwards, and it's an aftermarket fan, so it blows air this way instead of sucking air out. It's a much better fan, but it's also a lot louder. But still, it's a perfect time to finally hear these dual 7447s run in harmony. It's amazing to see this thing start up, and it's a really neat aftermarket card. So anyway, let's hit the power button and watch it start up. That is so cool. So now we'll turn the light off here and move over to the screen and watch it boot up. Alright, so I gotta get this wireless utility to shut off. It's not wanting to shut off. But anyway, this is my aftermarket Wi-Fi card, which works great, but the utility is annoying and won't listen to me half the time. There it goes. Anyway, so yeah, this is the Quicksilver running the dual 1.8, as we can see here. Dual 1.8, and that's the Sonnet dual 1.8. Now there were dual 1.8s that Sonnet made for the MDDs that ran off the 167 megahertz bus. Those are not compatible with these. Jay Bry had one and he fried his, damaging the socket or something like that on it. But he had overclocked it to 2 gigahertz, which you can't do with this from what I can tell. It's got some kind of proprietary chip on it. It just won't let you overclock it, which is sad. There might be a way to do it, but I just don't have a clue how to yet. But anyway, so now we're going to run some benchmarks and see how it all performs. And here we go. That's not good. Okay, so either the logic board is still damaged, or the G4 started overheating, and it caused that crash to happen that you just saw. So we're going to rerun this benchmark now that it's rebooted and closed. and we'll see how it goes this time. So let's first get this stupid wireless utility gone. There it goes. And still show you that it's still the dual 1.8 as we can see here. Let's run the benchmark again. Alright, so it didn't crash this time, so that means that it didn't overheat, and it had overheated before. Anyway, this is the benchmark we just did. I think I have the original benchmark I ran when I first got it right here. Yeah. So yeah, the board apparently is not damaged. In fact, the CPU is running the same exact speed as it originally was, which is pretty quick. We're going to do comparisons on this compared to the other G4s in a second. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to transfer this drive over to the digital audio and do the last two CPUs. Okay, so I've got the Quicksilver's SATA hard drive plugged in with an extension and a whole lot of wires. It's a janky setup here, but we've got the Sonnet SATA card plugged in there and it is ready. We're going to start with the Sonnet 1.4 single. These came from the factory in the box with a pin cap right here, which you just remove like this, and then you just line up the holes and you plug it in, which I need to actually be able to see what I'm doing here. 1 second. You just line up the holes, and the socket should just clip in. Now this system has been flashed to work with any aftermarket card ever made, basically. So this should be a very good example of a system that just works. Now after you plug in the card that won't plug in, you just screw it down in, which I'm not going to do, and it stays in place. Alright, it's plugged in, and I'll show you what it looks like when it powers up, which I have failed to actually plug the system in first. Oops. So let me plug it up real quick, and then we'll show you what it looks like when it powers up. Okay, so we're just going to power it up real quick, and you'll see what it looks like. Just like that. And this system I don't think belongs, because I think I have the speaker disconnected, or it's muted right now. Yeah, it's muted. So what we're going to do is have this boot into the boot menu, and I'll boot it up. I'm going to put this shroud back on here, and we'll take it from there and run the benchmarks. Okay, the system just finished booting up. If we go over to About This Mac, we can see it is running a 1.4 with 2 megs of L3 cache. This is a 7445. Very nice chip. Same chip they used in the later Quicksilvers, I believe, and also in all the MDDs. This, in fact, I think is the 1.42 they used in the MDD, if I remember correctly. But anyway, if we go to more info, we can see the data about the chip itself and what it identifies as. And then we can run the benchmarks. So I'll set this down here, and we'll run the same benchmark we just ran. And this system should run about the same as a Quicksilver. It's basically the same board, more or less. So there shouldn't be much of a difference. So let's get it going. Yeah, this is taking a long time. Oh, that's why it's taking so long. Okay, so I'm going to stop this benchmark because I just realized that the system is indexing the hard drive, and I'm not very happy about that. So that just basically screwed up this whole benchmark. So, yeah. Let's cancel this, and then cancel this. I'll be right back. Okay, so the indexing has stopped now, and we can rerun the benchmarks. Ugh. Okay, it took a little over twice the time for it to finish up, but that's the 1.4 there. And I'm not going to bore you guys with the 1.2's benchmark, but I will show you it running in the system. I'm going to actually finish rebuilding the system with the 1.2 back in it again. I'll show you the it running on here, and we'll do the comparisons, and then we'll wrap up the video. But yeah, this thing stayed ice cold, so it shows me, ow, that hurt. That shows me that this is a good cooling option because it stayed really nice and cool. So that's awesome. Okay, so here's the 1.2 running in the system. As you can probably hear, it's noisy, and that fan really needs replaced. It is not healthy, but it runs and it keeps the system cool. I'll have to figure out a way to find a new fan for it, and maybe a way to transfer the label over. But anyway, while this system is running the benchmarks, we're going to go and do a mock unboxing of what a Sonnet CPU would be like. So let's start up this Geekbench right here. And we're going to do a mock unboxing of what would have came with, for instance, an Encore ST. Like the 1 gigahertz, the 1.2, and the 1.4 we've tested in this video. Here's the box. I've mocked this up so it'd be just like the way it would have been, more or less. If you open it up, you would be greeted by a box that won't open. You would be greeted by the CPU itself in the top in a anti-static bag like this. You'd get the CPU with the plug over the pins right here to protect them. And then inside the box you'd get a driver installer disc on some cards. Not all of them needed them, I don't think. This one actually I think came from my dual 1.8, but would come with one of these if you needed it. Especially since the dual 1.8's a 7447, which was much newer than those systems, so you needed it flashed. But these systems actually natively, at least some of them natively supported 7445s. So then you'd also get the documentation about instructions, what you can do to install it, all that stuff. That would show you how to swap out the CPUs and stuff. And then you would also get warnings and stuff, like you must use the installer CD, which this box didn't come with one. I don't know what happened to it. I got this off of Harun. It might still be at his house for as much as I know. But hey, I had this disc, and this works just as well. So anyway, it would tell you that you needed it. You needed the latest update and stuff for it to even recognize. And that's what would come in a Sonnet box. And different companies did it different ways, but more or less that's exactly what would happen. And that's how it would come in the box. So anyway, I'm going to let the benchmark finish, and then we'll wrap up the video. Okay, so I was going to finish showing you everything off the digital audio here, but that really annoying sounding broken fan apparently doesn't cool quite as well as the normally working one that would be on, like, for instance, the 1.4. The 1.2's fan's too sick, and the system overheated and froze. As I was trying to show you the comparisons, I didn't even get to the point where I was filming. So we're going to hook the Quicksilver back up and show you the comparisons properly. And even though it's got a louder fan in it, I think it's going to be quieter. But anyway, I've got the digital audio back together the way it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to shut it down and wait for the nice peaceful sound of no nasty broken fan. Right there. Oh, that's nice. So yeah, we'll hook the Quicksilver back up, put the hard drive back in it, and wrap up the video. Alright, so we've got the Quicksilver hooked up, and it is loaded up onto my Geekbench profile here. And I thought we'd quickly show you some numbers of just some of my systems, and some of the comparisons here. For instance, the G5 Quad is 3723. That is the fastest PowerPC out there. And I don't think I mentioned this, but they never made aftermarket G5s, just G4s, G3s, and 603s and whatever, 604s. But no G5s. It was just it was a whole different kind of breed of PowerPC CPU. But anyway, so that is the Quad there, and then another factory stock card here, the MDD 1.5. My 1.5 that I overclocked from a 142, it's 1239. Okay. And then we've got, for instance, my no, let's not use the sawtooth. The gigabit Ethernet here, the dual 550, is at 477. And if we keep going down here, for instance, a single 125 MDD is 617, and a 1 gigahertz PowerBook G4 Titanium is 621. Let's see what else we have here. My dual 1 gigahertz Quicksilver is 815, and the 1.42 Mac Mini is 820. Okay, these are just some factory CPUs that will give you a general idea of what these CPUs ran at. But let's do the comparison of the tests here. We'll first bring up the single cores that we had. Bring that one up. That's the 1 gigahertz right there. Bring up the 1.2. That's the 1.2. Bring up the 1.4. That's the 1.4, and it actually performed the same as the 1.2. That one's throwing me off. That is probably not right. I did not realize that. They performed exactly the same. They shouldn't have. This is probably another 40 points at least, maybe even more than that. It might be towards 800. But you know, that was the indexing. It was not running right. It kept trying to index that darn drive, and it was driving me up the wall. So I'd say if I would have ran it again, it would have been a lot higher. But this gives you a general idea, you know, 601 just for the 1 gigahertz and stuff like that. Okay, so these were the upgraded chips here, And remember, the dual the dual 550, which I apparently closed that page out, darn. The dual 550 was like 500 and something. So a single 1 gigahertz was 600. That's a big difference. So let's bring up the Giga Designs, which was running at 1.46, and the dual 1.8. Okay, these are actually pretty close. And as we can see here, this is like 100 points higher than the MDD, running at 1.5. And that's just because it's got another 300 megahertz on it, times 2. But the L3 cache actually does allow the MDD to keep up pretty well, hence the reason why it's only 100 points behind. L3 cache is very important, and 7447s don't support L3 cache. This card doesn't have it. If it did, this thing would even be faster. It'd be amazing. But anyway, so that's that. The Giga Designs has L3 cache and is less than 100 points behind the MDD, and that makes sense because it's running at roughly the same speed as the MDD's CPUs. So yeah, it's even with a slower bus speed, the Giga Designs really does perform quite well. And these upgrade cards really allowed these systems to really just rip. So yeah, those are aftermarket G4 upgrade cards. And I hope you guys enjoyed today's videos. It was it was a pain to make, but it's going to open the doors for a lot more videos in the future, like bringing my MDD back, doing some more videos on that. I'm going to figure out how the jumper settings work on that now, because it's apparently very different. So I'll figure that out, and you know, it's also going to open up. I still have to introduce you officially, do a whole review on this Quicksilver we're on right now, show you the digital audio. I still got a number of other things that are coming up, but a lot of these systems have Sonnets in them, so it's an exciting thing to do there. So anyway, that's the end of today's video, guys. Don't forget that I am now sponsored by SellYourMac.com. So if you have an Apple device or a Mac that you want to sell, go to SellYourMac.com/RutKMods and check them out, sell something, and I'll get a little kickback. That'd be nice for me and be nice for you, because you'll be making money. Also, don't forget, I do now have a Patreon. If you'd like to support me, I have a link in the description below and also at the end of the video. And once again, that is the end of today's video, and thank you guys for watching. This has been a RutKMods video. Quick bonus material, guys. I decided to look up my ZIF G4 real quick because I was shocked about it being a 500, and it turns out it really is a 500, even though the G4 on it is actually a 450. Sonnet actually overclocked it to 500. The problem is this thing right here is not overclockable past the 500 that they clocked it at, just like those singles. Those aren't overclockable either. And what is going on here is Sonnet set up some kind of chip on it. I'd say it's this right here, but I honestly have no clue. I figure that's it. And what happened is it auto configures itself to whatever bus speed and jumper speed you have on the system to automatically set it to 500. So if I had it set at any settings on the jumpers, it would still go only to 500. I don't know if Colin and I can figure that out and a way to bypass it, but 500 is still better than nothing. But as we can look down here, it says It installs in minutes, blah blah blah, and it automatically configures the correct bus ratio without need for switches. So it auto configures itself with this chip right there probably, and it knows what speed it's going. The seller on eBay called it a 450. He was also selling 400s. There was a 400 model that Sonnet also made. It's not on this right here. But the 400, I don't think they sold for very long. And that kind of makes sense because Yikes 400 existed and stuff also. 500 was an upgrade. 400 really wasn't. You could probably find the Yikes G4 back then a lot easier, really. But, yeah, so this is actually a 500. And no matter what I run it at, it's going to end up staying a 500, which is a little disappointing, but still a neat chip. It's going to run a lot cooler. I won't have as many problems. And actually, Sonnet made a 7445 or a 7455 version of this chip, which would have been, you know, even more powerful, 800 megahertz one and a 1 gigahertz one, which I'd kind of like to find. And the cream of the crop holy grail is the dual, which many different companies made dual ZIF G4s, and ZIF systems didn't come with duals originally because they were originally designed for G3s, and G3s were never meant to run as a dual. The chips just were never designed that way, but G4s were always meant to had a design for dual, and there were a lot of G4s out there that were of course duals, and apparently the ZIF socket could handle a dual setup, and I've always wanted to find one of those. When they pop up, they go for really scary prices, so I probably won't have anyone unless I luck into one or someone gives me one. But yeah, this is actually a 500, so that's why it was automatically a 500 when I plugged it in. But hey, it's going to be cool, and I haven't tried it with OS 8.6. I know 8.6 doesn't work on my G4 clamshell with a 7410 in it, but from what I'm reading here, this actually will possibly support 8.6, which would be cool because 8.6 has a lot of neat features that 9 kind of killed off, or incompatibilities that 9 caused. So I like having 8.6 on my blue and white. So anyway, yeah, this wasn't as brief as I thought it would be, but it's an interesting bonus material, so I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks again for watching. One more quick second of bonus material here, guys. I told you earlier in the video in a text form that I had bought a pre-G3 to ZIF adapter card for ZIF cards. Here it is right here. It's taken me a while to edit this video, so I thought I'd quickly show you guys what it looks like. If I can get this arm up, I'll pull the G3 out while you look at this screen here. Here we go. It's literally just a ZIF socket on top of a I think these were 55 megahertz bus slots for pre-G3s like the 604Es. This is going into a 604E system, and everything's controlled by, I think, these dip switches here. This is supposed to have a heat sink that comes with it, but this one was extremely cheap, so I bought it the second I saw it get listed. And I was literally, that picture I showed you guys earlier is this card, and it came with a I think a what is this G3 right here? It's just a regular blue and white G3. I think it is a, I can't tell. It's a 333. And This card right here is going to be going to a special Mac. I have not actually revealed to you guys what it is yet, although I have talked about it on Magiac before. That might be a hint for you. But I have my very first pre-G3 PowerPC system, and it's going to get a G4 in it, thanks to this card. And this was made by Accelerate back in 1999. Interex, I guess, made Accelerate cards back then. Later on, some other company, I think, made Accelerate. But anyway, this is going to be a really neat upgrade, and I'll be doing a video on that probably when I introduce that Mac I haven't told you guys about yet. So stick around for that. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching.